Hey everyone, welcome in to today's session with environmental science. My name is Nolan Bay. I am an assistant director for admissions counseling here. Welcome to Premier 2022. And for those in the central time zone and the east time zone, good afternoon. For those a little bit further west of us, good morning still to you. Glad you guys are joining us here. So I'm going to turn it over to some friends and colleagues of mine. So Benjamin Ryan here is going to be talking about environmental science, and I'm going to turn it over to him.
Well, thank you, Nolan, for the introduction. We've also got Via Fitzgerald here. She's one of our environmental health science students. And what I'll do is I'm going to talk about our exciting area of environmental science. And it's a really good area to work in because there's global scope, global impact. And I'll go through what that means. And there's also lots of job opportunities for students as well. So if you want to study an area that's got a lot of meaning and you want a job, this is a great field for you to be in. It's an interdisciplinary science for an interdisciplinary world. So what we mean by that is for any crisis or any challenge we face, it's all interdisciplinary are the challenges that we need to solve a challenge that is all interdisciplinary. So if you think about contaminated water supplies, you've got all the different agricultural farms, you've got runoff from homes that might be using fertilizers in gardens. So you can see it cuts across lots of disciplines. Where we're unique, we've got the brand new, or the new-ish now, Baylor Science Building. We've got laboratory classrooms for students, for undergraduate students. We've got multimedia lecture rooms, state-of-the-art research facilities. The reason I say state-of-the-art is we do have colleagues working with NASA, for example, around air quality monitoring. So they're looking at air pollution in cities and whether there's a correlation or a link with more severe storms. So we're working in with NASA there. We've also got colleagues that are working on COVID in sewage, and they're also finding other indicators for other disease outbreaks in sewage systems. So they'll do that analysis as well. So they're two really cutting edge areas, just for examples that come to mind right now. We've also had a colleague that's been working through looking at treatments for COVID as well. So we're one of the oldest environmentally orientated degree programs in the US. We've got three major areas we go in. We've got environmental studies, environmental science, then environmental health science, which is the area Via's study. It began as an environmental studies program in 1969 and became environmental sciences in 2007. And we offer the Bachelor of Arts, or that's the environmental studies aspect, and also the science degree. And here they're listed here. So you've got the environmental studies. That's a really good area for someone who wants to go down the policy pathway. We've got the Bachelor of Environmental Science. That's a really good area if you want to study chemistry and really those science interfaces in the environment. And then environmental health science is a professional type degree. We also have a 4+1, which you can come out with a master's in public health. That's very similar to if you're thinking in the business field, an MBA. So if you wanted to work for CDC in a leadership role, you'd be wanting to do the environmental health science in the MPH program. This field here has jobs everywhere. It's an international field. That's the area I studied. You get this degree, you can work as an environmental health science professional anywhere in the world. Currently in the US, it's estimated there's 50,000 vacant positions in environmental health science. So our students come out with really good jobs and prospects and good pay as well. And building on this as a 4+1, we also have a Master of Arts in Teaching is another program we have as well. So people can study environmental science, then go down that teaching pathway. So there's two paths to specialisation. So we've got the interdisciplinary courses. So again, environmental health. We've also got environmental law. So that really cuts into the environmental studies aspect. So that's a really nice area for someone who wants to get into the policy aspects. We also have interactive and applied courses within all majors. So we've got field techniques. So students are taught how to take water samples, do the analysis. And in my roles I've had over the last 20 years working in environmental health science, these types of field techniques, I've used these in the field when we're taking water samples, soil samples, and really trying to work out what was impacting human health and well-being. And the environmental health science program we have, why we're unique is it's an accredited program. What that means is that there's a set pathway you can study. This is the area you want to work in if you want to work in disease outbreaks, mosquito-borne disease outbreaks, chemicals and their exposure to human health. So we've had graduates that work in those teams when there's a chemical incident, working out how can we respond, waterborne disease outbreaks, right down to community health and wellbeing. As part of this program, professional internships required. We've had a number of students placed with CDC internship programs. It's a solid science degree. So this can also be a really nice pathway if someone wants to go into the medical field or pre-medicine and become a doctor. This is a really nice linkage, because what you'll find if people become an MD and want to move into public health, so public health is looking at population health and well-being, environmental health science is really a fundamental area of knowledge, and you need that Masters of Public Health as well. Many career opportunities, marketability. I've worked in Ebola outbreaks, dengue outbreaks, COVID, other chemical responses. So this is the type of thing this field offers, and also in disaster management, if that's an area you as a student want to move into when you graduate. Our undergraduate research opportunities are unique. People can get access to our labs doing different areas of science around toxicology. We're also looking at pharmaceuticals and waterways, air quality, as I mentioned. We've got people working with NASA, human health risk assessments. There's also some work that we've had students help with the United Nations on developing a food system resilient scorecard, which should be launched in the next few months as well, officially endorsed by the United Nations. So you can see the lab through policy exposure that you have through our department. And we provide highest quality of education for students. The students come out, they've got very good job prospects, or they can go into postgraduate studies as well. We're tied number 22 in the nation among 106 departments. Graduates, again, highly marketable. Our students always have good job opportunities. Every conference I've taken students to, there's always employers trying to recruit them there. We also do publications with students as well. An exciting aspect that people get through the environmental science department is also access to the Bayer facility. So this is the Baylor Experimental Aquatic Research Facility. This allows students to understand what indicators you look for to make sure waterways are healthy. And this can also be a way to allow us to do farming in safer ways. And what I mean by that is reducing nutrients that might be flowing off into riverways. The goal of environmental health science, environmental science, is to keep society going, but in the safest possible way. And that's what this allows us to do, to look at indicators on how healthy streams are and how good the practices we're using when we're doing different aspects on the land, how that's playing out. And again, you can see here on the left-hand side, you've got people in the lab, on the right, people taking water samples, and then the analysis process as well. And we do take students to conferences. They get to engage with different professionals. So these are some of our students traveling with faculty to various conferences. We also have taken students to Beijing in China, and that's a really interesting area to look at the atmospheric environment as well. We've got people working in natural disasters, and you can see here that the bottom right here, that's a photo of students at a conference. That was with the president of the National Environmental Health Association, also the executive director. So we've got really good networks in locally within Texas and across the nation too, and internationally if there are students that want to go down in those pathways. So different career aspects as well. The environmental scientists, and more broadly speaking, is one of the fastest growing job markets in the US. And the US government's outlook shows that demand for environmental engineers and scientists is expected to grow much faster than average. So in environmental health science, as I mentioned, there's about 50,000 vacant positions. People often can go work for the oil and gas sector in environmental health and safety, to CDC, to multinational chains such as Koch Industries, which we've just had a student graduate that's working in there, McDonald's, Walmart, so you have the private sector, through local environmental and health departments as well. And outside the classroom, so students can get opportunities, for example, to go to China. This is an example here of students going there doing some studies. Costa Rica as well, we have study abroad programs where in this example, students are studying the water quality, so giving them real good practical knowledge. And these skills are applicable as well when you graduate. See, students can go work with organisations such as the Red Cross, doing water sanitation hygiene, and I've had people who have studied my field go and do that their whole lives, and they're helping in humanitarian crises and helping ensure human health and populations are protected. There's also learning outside the classroom in Australia. So on the right-hand side there, that's the Great Barrier Reef. That's where I moved to the USA from. I was living near the Great Barrier Reef. So students can also go look at one of the unique aspect in one of the oldest rainforests in the world and how it meets reef. There's only 2 places in the world where reef will meet rainforest. That's Brazil and in Australia. And in Australia, this would be the Great Barrier Reef. So students can go and do these trips, learn how the environment's managed in the safest possible way, but still allows industry to thrive. So that's what people can do on these trips. And then we've also had environmental law students. So looking at different aspects, look in Canada, for example. So there's all these different themes. And the beauty about studying environmental science and the different majors we offer is they can give you a nice all-round degree that is a launching pad for your career. So it's different to other professions in that, for example, if you're an accountant or lawyer, you're stuck in those fields, that's what you're doing. If you study in the environmental sciences or environmental health science, you can go in any direction. So I've worked in disaster management as well, representing health departments on statewide committees in those types of areas. So in conclusion, we've got a global scope, global impact, but it also goes from local to state, to national, to international, is opportunities that we can offer students in this area. And that's what people's careers will result in being if they take a course in environmental science. Thank you. I'm now ready for any questions.
Yes, please feel free to use the Q&A chat function so we can answer some of those questions. We do have one that's from Tyler saying, would those co-ops with the NASA offer in-person intern opportunities for students?
In terms of internship opportunities, that would be more study opportunities where you'd be partnering with our professors. They're actually launching this week or next week. I've got one of my master's or graduate students, is helping launch a balloon with NASA to monitor air quality through different layers in the atmosphere. So undergraduate students could help on those projects. There's different agencies we work in with as well for internships, so CDC, and a range of agencies that we have access to. We're also partnering in locally here with the Waco Public Health Unit. We've got a student who's going to do a project on lead, and lead's a big issue in downtown communities around the US, and that can lead to long-term health impacts if people are exposed to lead. So we've got the NASA aspects, CDC, lots of different internship opportunities.
That's great. Speaking of some high school courses, because we are speaking to sometimes a lot of the high school students in the attendee section here, do you recommend any specific courses that students should take in high school before they apply to Baylor for environmental science? Would something set them up for more success?
Yes, I think anything in the STEM fields or the science fields would be really good. And Via, I see you're there as an environmental health student. Is there any courses you took before you came into the program or Baylor from a science perspective?
Yeah, I definitely found taking AP environmental science in high school was really helpful because it kind of gave me a broad overview of the environmental science field and kind of introduced me to a lot of concepts. But also taking biology was really helpful, especially if you're going into environmental health. There's a lot of biology courses that you take, so having that background was helpful to me. But at the same time, you are introduced to a lot of courses as you start. So if you don't take those classes, you're not going to be behind anyone else.
And then kind of one of our next questions is, does the environmental science program itself offer scholarships for students inside of the program, even maybe later on, maybe not right away? Are there any particular scholarships?
In terms of scholarships, there are funding opportunities that arise within the department that students can apply for to get internal funding. One of those is through the Glasgow family. There's funds that are there available for students. It would be more the traditional scholarship pathway with Baylor University is how that would work out within the program itself. And then once you're in the program, there can be scholarship opportunities that do open up, particularly at the graduate level. I think about 55% of our graduate students are on scholarships funded by research grants. And then there's also the added layer of the Baylor scholarships for some graduate students as well. So yes, there are opportunities, but they're more as you're in the program and you get going. We've also had students be successful in winning some different opportunities and funding through National Environmental Health Association and CDC initiatives as well. So it's more once you get in the program, opportunities can open up.
Sure, that's great. Thanks for that answer. I know you mentioned a few different times kind of about some separate internships, but could you maybe talk about how are internships available throughout your 4 years? Do you have to wait till you're a senior to get your first internship? What does that look like?
So the internships are really, as you're getting to your more senior years, so let's say year 3 or 4 through university, so more when you're starting to really get into the degree. So you need to really get your first 1 to 2 years under your belt, and then you're really set up because you got the base knowledge. If you think about, particularly in the science programs, people receiving internships or interns, there is that extra level of knowledge that is required. And some of the students we've had deployed as part of this CDC program, you put in and you could be placed anywhere within the country. You get a stipend and all these things, and you work there in the summer, really as an environmental health specialist as an example. And you're working, you need that base knowledge so that if you're in the field, you know what's happening. Field techniques, you need to know how to take water samples and interpret the results. So you really need to get through those first introductory years at Baylor, then the internships really open up.
Next question is for our student here with us. I'm going to put you on the spot here. What has been your favorite class in environmental science and why?
That's a good question. I feel like all of the professors have taught great classes. I don't know. I'm sorry for not saying your class, Dr. Ryan, which is great. Environmental Health with Dr. Ryan is a fantastic course. But I think my favorite course has definitely been environmental law, because I'm really interested in the intersection of science and law and policy. And so I think it's really cool that we have such a specific course for that. And it's taught by Dr. King, who also is a lawyer, an environmental lawyer. So you really get to go in depth with the course.
That's great. Thanks so much. And Dr. Ryan, can you maybe talk about how, sometimes when we have, this might be a more challenging question, but sometimes when there's this dichotomy of science and religion put together, since Baylor is a Christian school, can you talk about how maybe the Christian nature is taught in the classroom in environmental science?
Yes, thank you, Nolan. So it's all underpinned by the Christian nature and the outreach and caring for others. And that's really the human health aspect, is trying to ensure we care for others. And something that VA may have experienced in my classes when we had COVID really through the peak, was also teaching students about the need for clean water, because there's about 250,000 children under 5 in India that die every year from unsafe water. And so it's really thinking through that Christian mission of well-being for others, caring for others. That's really the fundamental aspect of our training that we provide the students. And that's really a core, because environmental health science and environmental sciences are really about helping others. We're thinking about population impacts. The reason I use that lead example is what we can see is we've got issues where in poorer communities, you've got houses that still contain lead, and that's usually where poorer communities are. and then people can't learn, they can't get the education. You end up with generational cycles that become a big issue. And from a Christian mission, it's really important that we help those people thrive and can live the best lives they can, and reducing exposure to lead's another example. So no, I'm just giving a broad range of examples. It's really around trying to reduce harm to human health and humans.
That's great. Thanks so much. Can we talk a little bit about maybe the class size? Sometimes that can be a really big determining factor for students when they are making kind of their decisions coming into college or coming into Baylor. Are the environmental science classes, are they 350 people inside of the classroom, or what does the class size look like for some of our environmental science classes?
So for the classes I teach, I think the largest class I've had is 50 students for the classes I teach. So we do have smaller student class sizes, and there's very good interaction with our faculty as well. Faculty are I would propose, are very approachable for the students. And that's probably something Via can talk about her experiences as well about class size. Via, what's the class size you've experienced through the program?
I'd say once I got into the environmental science and environmental health courses, my largest class was maybe about 30 people. I think if you do end up taking intro to environmental science, that's going to be in a big lecture hall. But usually they're a lot smaller, which I appreciate. I really love kind of having a more conversation-based class. And like Dr. Moran was mentioning, those interactions with my professors have been like so important in my classes. And having that small class size has been important.
And if we think through to a Masters of Public Health program, which if anyone's a business mind person, that's like your MBA for environmental health science. We're at Baylor University, the maximum that we're taking is 30 students. So you can see there's a limitation there, because we want to ensure students can have access to faculty. That also helps their internships and transition into the workforce.
And kind of speaking of that access, Via, you might be able to speak to this as well, but when we talk about access to faculty and professors at Baylor, does that mean that like we'll just respond to an email eventually a couple of weeks down the road, or like what does access to faculty actually mean for you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that in all of my courses, I will like walk into the classroom, and after the first couple of days, like all of the professors like will know everyone's names. And they're always available like after class to go ask questions. I don't think I've had a professor not answer an email. Everybody's really prompt with it. And there's just a really kind of focus on helping students, I think, and building those relationships. And I think that just culturally, there's a really big emphasis on the professors just always making themselves available to students.
And Dr. Ryan, do you have office hours that students are able to access?
So my office hours are usually quite flexible, particularly now that we're virtual, not virtual, we're in person, but people are comfortable doing this type of interaction. I'm usually Tuesday, Thursday mornings, but I meet with students any time, because if I'm traveling or something along those lines, doing some research, we can still meet. So I do a lot of my meetings via Zoom now, or in person if that works out. In terms of socialising with environmental science as well, we also have a tailgate spot for football season, right by the river. So we've got sailgates, and every environmental science students or anyone interested in their family are welcome at any time to that tailgate spot.
That's great. So not just, I mean, of course we want to study and we want to do really well in the classroom, but outside of the classroom, we like to have a lot of fun too. Well, that kind of wraps up today's presentation with our friends from environmental science. For everyone that is in the attendee list, I just want to say thanks for tuning in and listening. I hope we answered your questions to the best of our ability. Just want to encourage you to go to as many different sessions as you can today on our virtual setting for virtual premiere. We are really excited that you've been here, hoping that you were learning so much about Baylor University. We want to thank you once again for listening. We hope everyone has a great rest of their day, a great afternoon, and always remember from us, Sic 'em Bears. Take care, everybody.